Yo, 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 what is up? It is another episode of Esports with Emmerich. I'm, of course, your host, Chris Emmerich. We're going to be talking about EU Masters as we have been for the last couple of days. We have a couple more of these unique six-game slates to, go ahead and enjoy, talk about. I know we had some nice winners. Today, I myself was able to take down some winner-take-alls. Didn't do so hot in the big GPP, but we'll kind of discuss that. Did all right in the 222, looking to kind of just build off of that day one 50-cent win into day two's $1,000 win, and hopefully we'll just go from there. The slate didn't necessarily work out exactly as we thought after a rather lackluster day one. We saw a kind of a hot and heavy, crazy game after game, team after team breaking the slate. It was one of those situations where we saw movie star riders do what we thought they were going to do, come out, put up 21 kills, fantastic kill participation. I was feeling pretty good because I was probably about 60 to 70% exposed to movie star, majority of those being large stacks. But then we saw a 21 kill win from PDW, a 22 from Big, 25 from Illuminar, and then that Mao's Mako game. Wow, that was pretty crazy. This hurt a lot of people. I talked about Illuminar being somebody that was a live team that Fnatic had its issues. I didn't expect them to get just thoroughly throttled like that, and yeah, that's something we'll talk about. Let's go ahead and let's get right into it. Let's take a look at these games and how they played out and what happened. The first one, Movie Star Riders against Penta 1860. They kind of are who we thought they were. Movie Star came out, put up the kills that we thought they were going to put up, and Penta at points, fought back pretty admirably. I think that they played pretty well. I have a little bit higher expectation for them now in their next couple games after the performance that they put up here. 11 kills is not great. Losing by 10K gold is not great. And just losing in general isn't great. But again, this was their first game. So we did expect them to kind of be a little bit more reserved. And they weren't expected to win. So, I think what happened in this first game was what we thought it was going to be. We got to see a Caitlyn and used pretty well. We didn't have the kind of the crazy day one comps that we did, but Caitlyn was kind of a surprise. I mean, it wasn't a surprise that it came out. These teams like to play it. I'm just actually kind of more surprised that it didn't come out sooner. Anyway, moving on. Next game, PDW versus Trick Esports. This was another game where it was the first game for both of these teams. We didn't know necessarily what to expect, how each of these teams and their individual success that they had in their particular regions was going to carry over and transfer. It's hard to gauge the Ultra League at some points because a lot of their players are rookies, even in an ERL standpoint. A lot of these players are put together, from other teams, and most of the good talent goes to the LFL or it goes to the Prime League or it goes to the Super League. And so, we've seen kind of a neutered Ultra League recently, but going up against Trick Esports, who I said, probably wouldn't have even made it this far had XL not made those changes. PDW just looked like they were outclassing them. At moments, Trick played all right. But overall, this was a pretty thorough stomp by Trick. When we look at these comps, again, nothing really stands out. We've been seeing a heck of a lot more Ornn in this tournament. And I think that's something that going into Worlds, we may see even some of the Major League Pro teams do. But kind of moving on, that game kind of went as we expected. There was a moment here between Zero Tenacity and Big where Zero Tenacity was very close. That was very short-lived. It wasn't a long time, and then Big kind of took over and it exposed the weaknesses that you have with Cassidy in that early game. Certainly, he's a champion that can really pop off, especially in the late game, but he needs to get there, and he's going to be incredibly weak in that early game. And if the jungle just decides to come over and pay a lot of attention into that mid lane, there's not a lot he's going to do. He's not going to get out and get ahead, and that's kind of what we saw happen. Xayah is a fantastic champion right now. I don't think she's played nearly enough for a good period of that game. Zaya was the only reason that they were even remotely into it. Big puts up 22 kills in 28 minutes, and again, they were not necessarily that highly owned, just on a basis, again, of cost, and we talked about that, but 22 kills looked really good there. Moving to the next game, and this is the one that killed a lot of people. Fnatic came out, and they looked really good, in the first game, and winning that first game, I think, carried some ownership over and some expectations. This team was going to be a little bit more than they maybe are, and certainly more than they were today. Illuminar came out and played absolutely fantastic. That Seraphine mid, when played well, and then just a scaling Ezreal that gets a couple of kills, they're able to get out into a lead and scale this game later. They just played everything flawlessly. And to have, I shouldn't say they played everything flawlessly. There were a couple missteps, obviously, but a 25 kill win nonetheless. They were the optimal team to have as your large stack. It's not hard to see why. You've got 5 kills there for Seraphine, 17 assists, massive kill participation. You do the math, that's 22 out of 25. And that's kind of what we're seeing is, if your team drafts Seraphine and plays her in the mid, you better hope that that's your captain, because if that team wins, she's going to have some massive kill participation. These aren't Seraphines that are building Moonstone Renewer and building to be kind of even a support in the mid lane. They're building Ludens. They're building Death Cap. They're building, they're building high AP, and they're going to put out some damage. But you still have some of those advantages that you have with Seraphine with, with her ult and just the amazing range on it. And that caught Fnatic out several times yesterday or today, depending on when you're watching this video. It's technically today, but it might be yesterday when you watch the video. I did this yesterday. Think I'm flaring. Man, I can't wait for football streams when I do some drinking and do this. If I can't even do this sober, I'm drinking water right now, and I'm messing up my days. But anyway, let's continue and go into the game of the day. Mouse Sports. Mako, I know I'm saying that wrong. It's just how it looks to me. This game was fantastic. It was tremendous back and forth. Miles really seeded an early kind of advantage. It looked really bad. I had Miles in a ton of parlays. I needed them simply to win, to take all of my winner take alls, to keep my parlays active. And it looked like for a long time it just wasn't gonna. It wasn't meant to be. It looked like this team was going to lose, but then things kind of turned around, and we saw that this group of players is significantly better than their counterparts. It's not that the counterparts were playing bad, but you could see the experience from Gadget, Pride Stalker, Sartorius, all of these guys. Chekalad, just a much more experienced, a little bit better team, and they were able to pull out a real back and forth game by just winning some of those objective fights. They were just completely ideal for fantasy production in the sense that, there were a lot of wipes. It was a situation where 1 or 2 people would survive, they'd reset, they'd do it again. And Mouse just really had to kind of outlast those Guardian Angels. As in a lot of cases, they had the Zonias as opposed to the Guardian Angels, much shorter cooldown in that regard. The team slot didn't score wonderfully as they ceded a lot of objectives. They lost that third dragon at one point to give Mako the sole point on the Zig steal. But just a fantastic game. I don't think we're going to see many other 53 kill games in the tournament. So this is probably our peak there. But they have, notably been involved in 2 of the higher kill games, I think, in both of the optimal games, at least to one part. So that's something to monitor into their third game. And then finally, we got kind of a letdown after that game, what's somewhat to be expected, a Vodafone Giants team that was just eventually outclassed by Carmine Corp. Again, I said that was probably going to be the result in these 2 games for this group. These were the 2 better teams, but there was no doubt in the KC win, and there very much was with the Mouse. A couple points that we talked about yesterday that I think came to fruition. A lot of these teams played a lot looser than they did in their first match, and that's just something to remember in the second match. So for Group B, that is. and going forward, since every team now has played a game, I think we're going to see some higher kill games, not necessarily exactly like today. I think today was kind of an outlier, a little bit on the extreme, just like day one was just in the reverse. So let's get into a couple different betting odds and let's see what we got coming up. So we have days one darling dog that we wanted to play, Anthosis, going up against Misfits. Now Misfits is a minus 600 favorite here, Anthosis plus 375. The 28 kills per win did not translate in day one, but they were pretty competitive. I'm just not sure that this is going to be the matchup where they're able to remain competitive against a tournament favorite in Misfits, a team that has pretty much done everything that they could hope to do this season, with the exception of winning an EU Masters. And so I think they're pretty focused there. I like Misfits to win this game. I think Misfits is fine, actually probably one of the better plays in fantasy, as this game, again, it's the first game on a European slate, has a tendency to break it. So one of these two teams is going to score really well. I'm probably going to go with Misfits. This is kind of a no bet for me. Plus 375 is attractive, though, in a best of one for a small bet, maybe like a half unit or a unit. You never know what could happen. I'm pretty sure, though, Misfits is going to take this game. Again, just a talent gap here. Going into the next game, we've got Rogue versus Ucam. Now, this game is a lot closer than I think the odds are going to put at least in what some people might perceive it. I believe that Rogue is a much better team. These two teams had kind of the opposite 2021 summer split. Ucam had a pretty horrific split, made it into the playoffs, and then had fantastic playoffs where they got all the way to the finals. On the contrary, Rogue had a utterly dominant split where they almost dropped no games, and then they get into the playoffs and they lose two series where they don't win any games for the most part. I think they got 3-0 both won. Maybe they pulled out one game. I don't recall off the top of my head, but these are two teams that went in different directions. Ucam did not have to go through the play-ins as a result. They just got their auto seed into this tournament, whereas Rogue did have to play through the group of death that included Maus, that included Vitality, and it included an eSuba team that I think was pretty good from one of the minor regions. So them making it here and then losing their first game to a Misfits team was not something that wasn't to be expected. Coming in here, they are the odds-on favorite. I'm backing them. Again, like I've said a couple times, I don't believe in this Ucam team. I don't like them at all. I was really pissed off that they won against Anthosis, and I think Rogue's going to come over here and they're going to redeem it as long as they don't fall victim to Rogue time. We hate that meme, and it's been kind of true with this team, as it probably more so than actually the main club. But let's go to the next game. We've got Movie Star Riders, a minus 210 versus Trick. I think this is a pretty smash spot here. Movie Star should score really well. It's their second game. They're going to be a little bit looser. I've talked about Trick not necessarily really being a good team, at least in the class of what you would expect from a number 2 in the NLC. And actually, they're the number 1 because they beat Fnatic. But truthfully, they're not that caliber of team. They aren't going to make it out of groups. They're not going to win here. That negative 210, go ahead, put 2 units on that to win the 1, or 2.1 to win the 1. Play Movie Star in DFS if they're affordable. We'll take a look at that as a second. This game doesn't really intrigue me a lot. Now, we know there are going to be some upsets, and this could be the one. They've got Penta 1860 as kind of the favorites here, not in any type of crazy way. A minus 125 versus minus 105. PDW was a team that I went ahead and bet last Friday in their first game. I thought that they didn't deserve to be the underdog, and they probably don't here, to be quite frank. I'm backing PDW. I think that they played a lot better, and as I've said, when we're going to look at Penta's split numbers, they weren't one that impressed me. And then looking into this Carmine Core, minus 260 seems like too good of odds there. I guess the whole point here is that Mako has been pretty competitive in their games up until now, but have they played a team that is as good as Carmine? Absolutely not. Minus 260 is just it's a little bit heavy for a best of 1 for me, but I I'm considering it. It's right there. I think this is a pretty fair line, and as such, I may pass. But I think, when you look at Misfits being minus 600 and then Carmine minus 260, makes this game far more attractive. And this is probably something that maybe if you want a little bit better odds, you don't go ahead and you play the money line. I think you maybe parlay it with like a Movie Star, with a Rogue, with PDW, something to just give you a little bit better odds on some of these games. And then the last one is Mouse Sports and Giants. And this game's a little bit harder for me to kind of put my finger on. Going into yesterday, I would have told you Mouse is absolutely the team that I'm going to back here. And I probably still will. I still think that they're likely the better team, but we've seen them kind of struggle a little bit. Obviously, they played Carmine Corp the first game, and as a result, they probably should struggle. But I thought they would take care of business a little bit easier today. There were points where they looked like they were in complete control, like they looked like they were the better team, like they looked like everything that you'd expect them to look like. But there were other times, especially in that early game, where you're just like, kind of, what are you doing? How are you letting this team do this? And is this a result of you not being good enough, or is this a result of them being better? Look, as we say it, we've got Carmine just going to minus 310. The line just moved right there. So, I'm not touching it at minus 310. I guess I lost my opportunity there, made the decision for me. I'm sure it's one of you that's watching that just moved that line. And so, thank you for making that decision for me so much easier. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at a couple stats from the tournament. Let's look at some of the teams. And as we talk about these matchups, again, when we're looking at Movie Star playing Tricked, we're looking at Movie Star being kind of a elite team, 1943 in their gold per minute, 275 in the GDM, versus Tricked, where they're at 150. Again, this is, not a good team. This is not a good matchup for Tricked. Who do I like for stacks? We'll talk about that in a second. Just let me go through these, and we're going to go into kind of the DFS aspect of it, kind of what the pricing looks like, and where we want to land with that. Let's continue here. So PDW and Penta, you can kind of see that these numbers are pretty even. Again, that's probably why the betting odds are where they are. Vodafone, obviously not very good against Carmine. These stats are kind of, I'm sorry, Vodafone, that was today. But even Mouse Sports against this Vodafone team, significantly better numbers. And as we go into something else, so we're looking at this. Movie Star should crush, absolutely. One last one here, Anthosis, again, much weaker region. All of this is through 11.13 against Misfits at 1806. I don't pay that too much attention, just again, given the level of competition between these two. However, Rogue gold per minute, Ucam gold per minute, I think this is one that you can actually kind of take a look at. The GDM 369 versus 39. I like Rogue. Rogue's part of a lot of my parlays, and they're the last last part of the parlays. So I have them at the negative 140. So they probably actually will end up disappointing as a result. But what did we want to pull up here? So let's take a look at the kind of the tournament and just a couple of things. These are super small sample sizes, but the best early game team so far has been PDW. Movie Star, the worst have been Tricked and Penta, and these are two matchups that we're going to see today. They're obviously a little skewed, as both of these teams are 1-1 or 1-0, and these are 0-1. But kind of goal differences that we've seen from these two-game teams, again, I don't know. I guess this is kind of hard to look at these at this point. This is a great site, though, after this group stage, when we get into the round robin where they're playing each team twice in a day, that this is something that we'll want to look at a little bit more at that point. Let's get into the stacks. Let's get into how these teams are going to play out. Let's look at the stats that they've had, and let's get into the DFS part, because that's where we're going to make some money. You can bet those games, but obviously this is what we're here for. We're here for the DFS aspect of it. So when we're looking at it, the number one priced team is going to be Misfits, and this makes a ton of sense. Misfits is here. Let me actually pull this over. So we've got Misfits right here. Woolite at 8,200. We've got Syracuse at 8,000. We've got Slatin at 76. So they're going to be the most expensive team, and this is justifiable. When we're looking at this game and we're looking at these two teams, we're expecting Anthosis to put up a good fight and either die doing so or get a lot of kills while they're winning. And, Misfits more likely to win, minus 600 favorite, 18.3, 18.8. This is a team that does a lot of killing, and Anthosis is a team that does a lot of dying. And so when you have those two combinations and you have a negative 600 favorite, you're going to have a lot of misfits. And, I think that throughout the last 2 days, we have seen that highest price stack is not one that people kind of flock to, because you need to find some other spots. And it's been harder to do that. But in this case, I do think that people are going to go to Misfits. They're going to go to Misfits just because of that Anthosis kind of and everything that we've talked about. Next up is going to be Movie Star Riders. They were super free today in terms of pricing. You could get almost anything that you wanted aside from pairing them with bigs. That's not going to be the case anymore. They're super expensive, but you still do get a little bit of a discount here on Marquee at 6,400. So that's something that we can consider. Carmine Corp is also super expensive here, as to be expected, and this is probably one spot where more people will go, being that they're the second or third most expensive everywhere. These three teams are going to get some traction. So let's try and put something together here. What even kind of fits with Misfits? I mean, and who do we think is going to win that we can put them with? We're not going to be able to captain the ADC unless we go with a heavy dog. So let's take a look at somebody that has looked susceptible at least. And let's go over, Antonio, not going to have a dial out. He's probably going to play Ornn. He's played Ornn both games. So we can put Misfits with Vodafone, and let's see how that goes. Let's put Slot in there. Oh God, I don't want to play Mini Duque. Yeah, we'll take a look at PDW too. Attila here. So you can't do it here. You can't do it like this. I would want Attila. You could probably do it the other way though, I would think. Let's see. Yeah, you could do like a 3-3. You could probably do it this way too. So there's some ways to do that. Let's see if we can actually even build this. I don't know if Giants are the dog that we want, but I just think that Mouse Sports has shown that they're, not unbeatable. I think that they lost to a lesser team than Vodafone, and so maybe the Giants are a team that could win. If you're trying to pair them with Misfits, you're definitely going to have to find a bigger dog than normal. So I'm just playing around with this right now. I'm not necessarily saying that that's one, but I think that's a spot that if you're building a lot of lineups, I'd want some Vodafone exposure, but I probably wouldn't. That's not necessarily my first place, I wouldn't think. But if we are building this, let's see something here. We do this, we go 1-3, and then we go. I mean, so you can do it with a jungle captain. It's a way to go. We had somebody comment that PDW was a good price. So let's take a look at PDW quick here. Let's see. Yeah, so you're probably not going to be able to price in Woolite unless you're taking something unless you're going real deep. Hey, you can probably do something like this, right? Like this works. This has to work. Yeah. I don't know if I want to do that. Who's is how about Ucam? Nah. All right, let's try some PDW and Movie Star. Let's take a look at that. So if we're going to do Movie Star, they are pretty expensive. PDW is relatively inexpensive here. I see what you're saying. Let's try it with a mid captain maybe. Let's see, go color, max lore. This one's for Josh. Yeah, you could do that. You could put it together with a mid captain. I think we could probably do it with a Yeah, I mean, you can do it with an ADC captain as well. So super easy. I think PDW, as a result, is likely going to be pretty popular. Just based off of that pricing, what we just did there, they're going to fit with a lot of the favorites. So, just looking at this now, we've talked about the betting odds and we talked about where I bet, what I wouldn't. When we talk about DFS, it's obviously a completely different story. We're kind of looking at maximizing situations and what ifs. Some of the phrases that I've used, that I've seen, are, I have no idea what's going to end up actually happening, but I'm going to build lineups to compete against people that do think they know what's going on. And so a lot of times it's just going to be a situation where you want to, you go in knowing that you're going to lose with this lineup more often than not. But when you do win, it's not a min cash lineup. It's something that's going to compete for first. When it comes to Anthosis and Misfits, I think Anthosis is a fantastic dog to play in a big GPP. I would play it in any type of small ones, but that main GPP, 1,700 people, if you want to put one or two lineups in there with Anthosis, I definitely would say that you want to make them the large stack, unless you're doing like kind of a 3-3-1, because when they do win, they're not going to win this game by dominating from the start to the finish. This isn't going to be a 24-minute win. This is going to be a back and forth game where there's going to be a lot of deaths. This is going to look just like that Maus and Mako game today if they are going to win. I think that's highly unlikely, but that's a route that you can go. I think your most likely dogs, based off of what we've seen, based on what I've watched in terms of being able to win, would be, as much as I hate to say it, Ucam, PDW, I feel really good about, and then the Giants would be the three dogs that I'd probably feel the best about, and obviously PDW being the strongest. Based on recent form, probably the Giants and then Ucam. If you're looking at kind of just the split, then Ucam kind of comes out of that, and so does Vodafone, and it really just becomes PDW. That's kind of where we're at there. So I don't know. Do you guys have any other questions? I'm not sure how I'm going to build it. I don't know what I'm going to put in this 222. I don't know what I'm going to put in winner take alls. I would venture to guess that Misfits is going to be super popular, and Movie Star Riders, Carmine, one of those three, is kind of where I'd start in cash. I think you can even put them together. For example, let's just take a look at these two. They're super expensive, so we're not going to be able to do kind of a jungle captain. We could probably do something like this, though. No, we can't. That's, I don't know. I don't think I'd run that in cash or winner take all. So maybe you can't do that. And if you know anything about me, I'm not playing sub captains. If it wins, and it did beat me one time in a GPP, just cool. I'll live with it. It happens. Let's see. Yeah, this is a concern that you have, is that Misfits will win, and I think that they will. The problem is that they might, in fact, win too easily, that Anthosis might not put up enough of a fight. It's going to be kind of similar to some of the games that we saw today in regards to, oh man, I don't even have the screen up. It was probably here. I think it's kind of similar to, the big Zero Tenacity game. Well, not even like the big Zero Tenacity game, probably more like this game here, Misfits Row, where it's like 12 to 8, and they just kind of finish it off, or a 13-7 by Carmine Corp, or even this game right here where Illuminar was in control, and they just, again, Zero Tenacity just gave up their base, and so as a result, that game didn't end, with the back and forth fights that you would think at objectives. But also, keep in mind, these games yesterday, 30, 32, 30, these games all ended pretty quickly in ways that, like, kind of, if you blinked, that they were done. Today we had 37, 37, almost the exact same time frame. A 28, which was a little bit lower kill, that didn't have the back and forth. That 51-minute game that almost made me late for an appointment. I'm sitting in front of this lady's house. She comes outside. She sees me there. I'm like, hey, yeah, I gotta come. I can come in a second, but I gotta see this. We just got an elder fight going on. I can't step out of my car yet. So let's see another comment here. What do you think the tournaments have? Best upside for tournaments? Oh, I mean, I guess it just kind of depends on what you're playing. So I can kind of give you my strategy, and I understand that who has the best. Oh, okay. My bad. I kind of read that wrong. I thought you were saying what tournaments do you want to play? I mean, there's not a lot, so I was happy to go through it. Who has the best upside for tournaments? Let's look at this. So you've got, and obviously these numbers are not truly indicative of everything as they weren't today, but Misfits, 18 kills when they win. And we're thinking that Anthosis loses game, 20 kills when they lose. Not a ton, not a huge sample size, but these games that Anthosis lost were to good teams. It's just they probably weren't as good as Misfits. Let's see, Movie Star versus Trick. This is the game that I think, I've been preaching on it. Movie Stars, I feel like I'm just kind of talking about it even more, but Movie Stars at 23 kills per win against good competition. Tricked, when they've lost, they've given up a ton of kills. This is including their, games against Fnatic, their games against XL. This is a team that just dies a lot. Even some of the games that they've won to get here were kind of miraculous saves at the end of the game. And you almost kind of saw it today. They kind of had a little mid-game spike where they were quickly thwarted by the better team. But, looking up and down these mid to late game ratings, Tricked is one of the higher late game teams. And that is kind of a byproduct of what we've seen in some of these games with late game Ezreal. And, if a team gets them, they're never truly out of the game because the late game Ezreal is hard to kill and can kill you. So they had a couple comebacks that were revolved around that. But I think that game has a lot of pop-off potential. I think if Trick ends up beating Movie Stars, which is not outside of the realm of something that can happen within a best of one. We had a Flycast 3-0 weekend with their academy team after all. And there was a disparity between the level of competition on those two teams or the level of talent on those two teams. And that's the same here. Yeah, look, Tricked is horrible. The NLC is not really good, but the whole point is that if Trick does win, Tricked is probably going to win not by picking off guys in the side lane and getting solo kills and just, doing all these fancy design plays. It's probably going to be grouping up at objectives and just winning team fights and possibly winning team fights by the thinnest of margins. And so you see a situation much similar to the Mouse Sports win today where, it didn't matter. Whichever team ended up winning that game was probably going to have the optimal score at a certain point because this was just a grouped up fight over and over and over and over at objectives. I think we saw a couple games in the LCS where EG had games like that where just you didn't have any clear definitive winners at the objectives, and as a result they couldn't capitalize. When you have 3 or 4 people that survive a Baron fight at 25-30 minutes, usually you can march down mid, you can take an inhibitor, and you can probably even try to end the game. But even in like that big game, I think it was today, they were about to take the Nexus and then they all died, and that ended up getting another 4 or 5 kills into that game and inject some points there. That when you see teams that are not necessarily better than their competition win, you see that more often. Now, Big, obviously, in that situation is a better team, but, we're talking about Trick playing Movie Star. Trick is not as good. It's not going to be a romp. If they're going to win, it's going to be pretty bloody. So what other games do we have going on tomorrow? We've got Rogue and Ucam. Look, this game, while it's one of the closer ones, this on paper does not look like it's going to be one of the bloodier games. I do think Rogue kind of just rolls this. You can see their statistics, first blood, first tower, much better than Ucam. And I think that even carried over somewhat to the play-ins. When we look at Rogue, actually they did really poorly, but again, they were in a tough division, but yeah, so these are a little bit more indicative. There's more games right here, 6, 7, and 8. So you can pull up stats from the play-in and kind of extrapolate at least with those 4 teams. But what you can see is that even during that time frame, Movie Star Riders, this is just their wins. This was 8 wins, 195 kills. You can see it comparatively to these other teams. Yeah, I mean, they're just a superior team in terms of kill totals, so they're going to have that right there. Look, I'm not pimping the NLC. I've won a lot of money off the NLC, and I'm just telling you that Trick can fill your pockets if they win. The likelihood of it happening is pretty low. Let's see, what else do we got here? Who else is playing? This game could be bloody too. I don't know. I don't have a definitive point here. I think PDW is going to probably be overowned, so maybe play Penta as a favorite. PDW is just too easy to fit with other teams. Kind of the thought process I'm having right now. This all could change in the morning. I'm just trying to run through it right now. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Movie Stars is going to be the small stack. You just got to find the big stack to go with them. It's probably going to be like Giants or Mouse Sports. Those are the two that I'm going to peg. So I'm going to say the Giants beats Mouse Sports. And Giants is the correct 4-man stack, and they're going to either be with like PDW and a dog lineup, or they're going to be with Movie Star one way or the other. I'm going to come around on Ucam. No, I won't. I don't like Ucam at all. If I went and pulled all my betting sheets from summer and I pulled on Ucam, you'd see part of the reason I really don't like Ucam very much. But all right, guys. Any other last questions? I'll be around either on Twitter, in the Discords tomorrow. So if we have some questions, lineup building, feel free to ask. My DMs are open. More than happy to go through that. I think we did nail the ownership yesterday pretty well. Me and a couple other people, they asked me just kind of where Movie Stars is going to be. I said between 20-30%. Came in about 20%, which was it's high for a 6-game slate, but all right. Well, I feel like I'm just kind of rambling at this point. Can't be super entertaining. It's time to go to sleep and, wake up and see some more EU Masters. We only got 2 more of these 6-game slates. I really appreciate you guys watching these videos. It's fantastic to see. I've been doing, different fantasy related podcasts for a couple of years now. Sometimes it's for 5 people, sometimes for 10 people. So it's really cool to see, 100 people have watched these or at least 100 views. Some of you might have watched it several times, which is super cool too. But as always, this was presented in conjunction with the esports department. Go over there, check it out. All the content is free. Just, hey, look, if we help you win some money, if this video helps you bank the $10 or the 5K up top GPP, go ahead, hit the donate button. We appreciate that. Also, you can find my DFS specific content for esports and NFL coming up over at drroto.com. The DFS stuff is free, as always. Look, if something helps you win, feel free to tip, donate. Some nice words on Twitter will suffice as well in that regard. But also, if you want some of the premium tools, check it out. We've got monthly passes. We've got season-long passes, state-of-the-art optimizer, cheat sheets for your drafts, which I'm sure are coming up right now. So if you need a promo code, hit me up on Twitter. It's Emmerich D4U. That's like the letter D as in draft, the number 4 upside, draft for upside, kind of like beer, Emmerich D4U. And I'll get you a promo code for that. So again, for the esports department, for drroto.com, I'm Emmerich, and I will see you guys tomorrow.